Hey, Matt from Space Cats Peace Turtles here. Let's learn how to stream Twilight Imperium. I'm going to start with some big basics, and then we will get into the more complicated stuff with the overlay. How do you feel about that? Ignore my couple of scenes here. We're starting with a fresh thing. I've named one action phase and one status phase, and we will get into why there's two in a bit. But the first thing we got to do is we got to get Tabletop Simulator on this thing. I do not like to use display capture. It leads to goofy things like, oops, I accidentally opened up a weird browser window or whatever. So I always use game capture. And then when you do game capture, you can say, hey, Tabletop Simulator. And you come over here and you can choose a specific window. And from your specific window, I can come in over here and I can say, hey, there's my Tabletop Simulator, right? Okay, boom, bam. We've got Tabletop Simulator in the game, in action. So then from there, we can already get into adding the overlay. Now, a lot of things are stylistic choices. When we stream, we like to get rid of all of our toolbar stuff in Tabletop Simulator itself. But outside of that, you know, whatever. Do what you want. Now, to get the overlay going, you want to open up a new source, and you want it to be the browser. This is essentially like OBS is opening a window in Google Chrome, but it's not Google Chrome. It's in OBS. And you want that because you don't want to be trying to control things through a million windows on your screen. And also this is going to allow us a lot more control over other stuff. Now you want to name this something specific. I would go for something like Scoreboard, because that's what this is going to be. This is going to be our scoreboard in all its instances. But be careful what you name it, because we're going to end up copying this source many times, which means you're going to see this name a lot of times, and that can make for some things that are difficult to navigate, but it will be worth having copies of this thing. I will talk about that more in a minute, but we're going to go ahead and call this Scoreboard so that we understand that this is all instances of, you could say overlay, you could say all kinds of things. I say Scoreboard because I put a distinction between my scoreboard and we put like an artsy overlay on top of our scoreboard. So anyways, this is all nothing. So Scoreboard's open. Okay, we've got our URL here. If you're in the description below, you can find a link to a download for a .json that has all of this already collected. That's great. But if you're wanting to build this yourself so that you can customize it, of course you need to follow the information in Root's display tool, right? And that's what this stuff is. And then this is our unique code. Now, if you're downloading my JSON, you don't want to use my change me. You need to have your unique code doing this. And if you've looked up how to use Root's overlay tool, which I think you should do before watching this video, then you will know kind of how to set that up. And we're going to make this our own unique thing. You know, you can call it Jolnar Binks stuff, whatever you want it to be. But I'm going to leave it to change me for now, because that's what I've got all my stuff set to. Now, I like to set the browser to a huge thing because I want the entire Heroku app to be displayed all at once. So I set this to 1000 by 3000, right? And so when I do that, it's this massive thing. But that's roughly as big as the entire window. So from there, now that this could change too. There's a world where Root makes this round zero thing a little bit bigger, and we get into all that stuff later. Now we have our browser here, but like it's kind of unwieldy and useless. The other thing we want is in Tabletop Simulator, we want to start our game data, which I've already done. But you know, if you know how to do it, you do game data space, and then you do your unique code. You want it to be unique to you, because if two people are using the same code and streaming at the same time, you're going to step on each other's toes and it's going to break things. And then I like to set it to 30. If you do space, then it refreshes every 30 seconds. You get a little confirmation down there. Cool, we are connected. I could go ahead and come over to my OBS and start messing with this browser. Now, I can't do anything yet with this thing, but if I right click it and I choose interact, it opens up the actual browser itself. And then that's where I come in here and I say start collecting data. And now we have our actual information. Now, of course, everything's unchosen at the moment, but this is how we get all of our faction information into the game. Now, how do we get a bunch of these? This is where the copying and stuff comes into play. So for this first screen, you can hold Alt, and while you're holding Alt, you can go to select these barriers here, and that's what allows you to crop them. So we come over here, we probably go way down to the bottom. This part can take a second, and again, there's some extra fiddliness to the way I do it, but it's what gives me the most control in the stream. So it's a little bit more prep, but it makes it easier on the day of streaming. So we hold Alt, we hold Alt, we hold Alt. These are roughly in there. If we deselect, we can see we've got, oh man, a little bit of border there. You can always go in and transform, edit transform, and this bottom section here is your crop. And so we remembered we had like 1 pixel there, so our right crop, we can say, hey, let's bring that in a couple pixels, and let's bring the bottom in like 1 and 1 and 1, whatever. Then we have a nice little overlay here, right? And we can bring this up here. You can change the size of this, and we often do, not necessarily for this screen, but keep in mind that any changes to the size is going to kind of blow out the text, right? So generally, we're trying to keep this stuff to its like original size, right? So this thing, you know, we put up here, we kind of want it, I like it in the center of the screen. You could do it wherever you want, man, get creative. But we put ours here, and this is what we use for the action phase of the round, right? We just have this minimal display in the way we see as much of the game as possible with all of the most important relevant information just up top, and then that's it. And then we have a more detailed screen for the status phase and agenda phase and all that, or occasionally we bring it up during the action phase so that people can get that detailed information, but we personally don't prefer to leave it up all the time because it just makes the screen a lot muddier and kind of harder to engage with for new viewers. Of course, all of us experienced people love as much juicy information as we can, which is why we, as streamers, decide when we want to put that information up so that we can all kind of analyze together. Make it a stylistic choice, make it your own. If you want to leave it up all the time, if you come up with a solution where all of the best information is up all the time, good for you. I encourage you to stick with that. Another thing we like to put on this main screen, if you want a little bit more information, is, so this is where I want to copy, Control-C, Control-V. Now we've got 2, right? Okay, there's 2 of these things. The reason I'm copying it is because for each new, if I wanted to just re-add this, and I came down here and I did a new browser, and I did Scoreboard 2. If I did this, we tried this early on, and we bring in our same link here. The problem is this is a new instance of the browser, and if I go in and I turn on its game data, it is on a separate refresh timing from this browser, which then makes it annoying when you get a bunch of these little pieces up, when you have all of your available point stuff up, suddenly all of your components are refreshing at different times, and it gets very, very, very messy. So we don't want that. We want all of them to be copies of each other, which does, of course, make it very annoying down here where everything's labeled the same thing, and you often, if you get a bunch of them, you really have to like dig around and find which one of the pieces you're trying to grab and select. But once you have your copy, you can hold Alt, and we can like uncrop stuff, right? We can bring it down here, and what I like to have in like my bottom right corner or whatever is a mini display of the available points. Now, right now we don't actually have that information because I don't have my stuff up. If we go deal objectives and we, let's reveal a couple, and then it'll take a minute for that to update, but we can start sizing this in. I like to have just the display of the active objectives available in the bottom right. So it's a very small display, but we can put that kind of over here in the corner, and when it updates, if it updates, we'll be able to see, there it goes. See, now we can kind of adjust this. Now you could include it, the stuff off to the right is going to be all the different players that have scored things. I like a very, very, very small minimal display that's just like, hey, these are the active objectives right now, just because I want this screen to be as basic as possible. So like that can just hang out in this bottom corner or whatever, right? So there, boom, there's our other stuff. There are other little things, and again, this is all whatever you want to do. We've copied and pasted. There's our stuff way down close to the bottom. That's the rotating tray. That stuff's really juicy information for people who do want more stuff going on. They can come way down here. Again, I know that this is like annoying to get set up, but then it becomes worth it on the back end. So these two screens, this is our tech display, and it rotates between all of the players. And this is our resource display, and it rotates between all of the players. So it's nice to see there, you just switch to the red player. We can come in and we can copy these components, and we can also have them displayed over here. So, you know, we have this, and then we copy, and we, whoa, I just did, oh, I copied the wrong thing. So we grab this one, we copy, we paste it. We do this one. And now we have like a bunch of displays here. And you can go in and clean these up as much as you want. But then here's our, you know, here's sort of our main action phase display with a bunch of annoying little scoreboards and Tabletop Simulator. And we're ready to visually stream. Stick around to the end of this video for how to do audio, because I'm going to keep that as kind of a separate thing. But let's get into the bigger status phase screen. Okay, let's talk about status phase. Here's an impractical round 5 scenario that we've built here. So the first thing we want to do is we can actually go ahead and click down here, and we can copy our Tabletop Simulator source. And we come over to status phase. We can just Control-V, paste it in there. You can do this in anything. I often do it with every single one of my audio sources. I copy between all of my scenes, because you don't have to rebuild them. You just copy and make sure all of your audio sources are in the same thing. So we have our Tabletop Simulator here. We can even like grab one of these scoreboards, copy it, and get it over there. And now it's also refreshing at all the same times as the ones in our action phase scene, right? So we want to continue with that trend of always copying our browser source so that it's updating all at the same time. But now we want to set up our status phase thing, and we have all these points. You know, here's our big main points display for the game. So this thing we like to get right here to this size. You can get really nitpicky in here if you want, but generally it's easiest if you just leave it like that. Now, with this screen, we're going to start really messing up stuff. So this is where we usually take this and we bring it up like that. And we want the whole screen visible, and then this border area is sort of just like scoreboard land, right? So I'm not perfectly penciling these in, but this is just the general idea of whether or not you're wanting to build this kind of thing yourself. And one of the things we are hoping to have with the scoreboard is for this top section to actually be quite a bit bigger. If you're watching this video later, that may have already taken place. But for now, we do stretch this one out a bit just to fit down here. Because it's hard to squeeze other things in like that narrow of a space, right? If this were its normal size, like to get something else in here is a bit awkward. So we do kind of blow it up. You can see it in the text. There's a little bit of odd sizing stuff there, but I like to bring this up to about that big, right? You can kind of get it to snap to other things, not always. So you just have to sit there and feather it in. But then we kind of have this big space over here to figure out like what other information can plausibly go in there. And again, we do our thing, but literally I don't think we've made like the perfect right choice. I think you can do whatever you want with that. I mean, you could take, and if you think it's going to be legible enough, you can take this text screen and you can put it down in there and then shrink it down to size and hope that that's, you know, maybe people can see that. Probably not, but maybe. You can also use some of the other sources that are inside of this tool. Again, we've made the whole browser thing one massive window that we are then sort of like cropping around and through. And it's a messy way to get to it, but it means all of our components refresh at the same time. So something like this tool fits down great over here. We are limited in what we can actually fit because it is taller than, you know, the amount of room we have here. So if we wanted it to be like right here next to our score display, that's cool and good. We might even like do something like that. And then, oh, okay, cool, we've got kind of at least down through secrets and action cards selected. That is an option. We even make use of just a color source sometimes, and you can set that color to the same color as the piece from before, which it'll take me a second to do that exactly. I can mute this, and then we can go like this. We go boom, properties, select color, pick screen color, boom. We make it this blue, and then we can drop this color source to the very bottom, and now anything we put under or on top of it blends in with the rest of our scoreboard, so it looks like one cohesive unit. And you could add more into this little gap or whatever. The secrets end up filling up pretty far down, so it's up to you. But our goal is to have as little negative space as possible, because we don't want a whole bunch of wasted screen real estate. But again, you do whatever you want to do and whatever information you want to try to include. This is the gist of what you will see in our provided JSON, and you can feel free to customize it as you want. But I wanted you to see how it was built so that you can either build it yourself or you have a better idea of how to modify it if you want to make any changes yourself. Okay, let's talk about audio. The ideal audio for a TI stream is to have the players and game sounds at one audio level, and then yourself and commentators available at a different audio level, and we'll get into exactly what that means. But let's just start with, hey, look, it's a new scene. We don't have any video. We're not thinking about video right now, but we'll add our first audio source. And the first source is an audio input, which is us, ourself. And you can go ahead and put my audio if you want. Something to that effect to make sure you remember that it's me, myself, my microphone. I've got all kinds of crazy stuff. Ignore that. Yours is just going to show whatever your main microphone is. In my case, it is this chat mic, but you're going to have whatever your headset is called, or whatever your blue snowball is, or whatever. That's your mic, right? And now we see, ooh, I got audio levels. Cool. This is me talking. Then we want to add in one of our audio outputs, something that's coming from our speakers. And the first one we want to do is our commentator audio. So we add our commentator audio, and we have to have installed a little devilish program called Voicemeeter Banana. This is Voicemeeter Banana. You just Google Voicemeeter Banana, download it. There's a few different versions. There's Voicemeeter, there's Voicemeeter Banana, there's Voicemeeter Potato. Don't worry about all that. Get Banana, okay? And in Banana, the only things, there's so much you could do with this, but let's focus on the simplest thing. You have two virtual inputs here. Make sure they're both selected to A1. And then on audio out, make sure A1 is selected to your primary speaker output. Whatever your computer is, your main headset, headphones, or your speakers, whatever, I would suggest always using headphones while streaming. Never have open audio that bleeds into your microphone. So whatever your headset is, make that go to those. In this case, mine's my system sound. So that's all I need to do. That's it. Don't touch this program ever again. Turn it off as often as possible. It's going to mess up your sound driver settings a lot. So always double check your sound. If your sound suddenly stops working, it's because weird default things have happened in your sound properties. And I'm sorry. This is the mean side of doing this kind of thing. But we can get this out of the way. We can come back over here to our commentator audio. Now we want to set our commentator audio to one of our two Voicemeeter inputs. Voicemeeter adds new what are called virtual audio cables to your computer. It treats it like new inputs. And it doesn't matter which one we do for which, but we just want to make sure they match what we're going to be doing here in a second. So let's just say Voicemeeter aux input is what we're going to do for commentator audio. Now on our commentator, we want them in a separate program from Discord because we need to have two separate calls going at once. So for commentator audio, we come over here, we've got our standard microphone to talk to our co-commentator, and then our speakers need to match whatever we just set our commentary audio to. So we just said voice aux. This is in our Google Meet settings, right? We go over here, we get this pulled up, and this is what we've got. So we can run a little test there, and if we pop over to our OBS, it's going to take me a second to do this at the same time, but you can see commentator audio. It's lighting up. Oh, how great. Things are working out. Then we add one more audio output, and this is player audio. These are our players in the game. And this one we want to set to the opposite of whichever one we just used. So we come over here to voice meter input, and we select that. And then in our Discord settings, we again make sure our input is set to whatever our normal mic is, but our output, we want to set to whatever we just set our player audio to, which is now voice meter input. And in this one, we can also, hey, always use push to talk. Or, I mean, you can, if you're good at muting and unmuting yourself, cool, but have a way for the players to not hear you while you're commentating. I use push to talk. But within Discord now, we can see my audio still flaring up. Commentator audio is right there, but we got our player audio down here. And if I run a little Discord mic test, I can go check, and you can see the little echo is coming through the player audio, and it distinctly is not coming through commentator audio. So what this is telling me is that I've successfully set up my Discord to go ahead and put the player audio. Any sounds that Discord tries to output are going to come through that audio channel, right? So now I have 3 audio channels through which my audio is coming through. Now we get into the slightly more complicated settings. So the complication here is in the main thing we want to do is we want, whenever I talk or my commentator talks, we want it to turn the players down. The big difficulty with any of us as we were getting started doing streaming, especially Twilight Imperium streaming, is there's already 6 people talking, and then we just added 2 more people talking on top of them. And if all of our voices come in at the same level, it becomes a complete and total mess. So we can go to our player audio, and we go to filters, and under filters, we go ahead and add a compressor. Now, I'm just going to leave it called that. I don't care. But our compressor looks like this. You can look up more tutorials on compressors if you would like. There's all kinds of fiddly business you can get into with this stuff. But the big thing is this sidechain ducking source. What sidechain ducking does is it says when this audio starts making noise, it will turn this channel down. So I can say, hey, when I talk, I want this thing to turn it down. And then you need to go in and you have to change these settings. You have to turn the ratio like way up so that this is essentially the percentage amount. This number's not a percentage, but it's changing how much it cranks the thing down and at which threshold when I talk does it cut in. So if you set this to 20, you can be, or 30, you can kind of chill and be talking a little bit quieter and it'll still override it. But if you want to make sure you're not including any of your house's background noise, then you make it a little tighter of a window. The closer you get to this, the more it's never gonna duck whatever you're doing. These are other more important settings that do crazy things. I would suggest you go look up other tutorials. But we want to set that filter, but we actually don't want to have closed this yet because we want to add a second compressor because we also want our commentator to duck our little our players. So we want 2 compressors that follow the same logic where player audio ducks down when I talk and when my commentator talks. And then whenever they do that, it'll make them to where you can tell they're talking in the background, but you can't distinctly hear what they're saying. And then you quickly quiet yourself so that you can hear all the trade conversations or else YouTube yells at you and whatnot. Okay. And so if you've done all of that, you can add all sorts of extra bells and whistles, and you can get something as complicated as what we have here, where we've got kind of a pre-show splash screen while you turn on your stream, and rather than forcing people to start immediately, you usually want, within 5 minutes of pre-roll so that people can join the Twitch stream before the game starts. There's all kinds of fancy stuff. I've got a draft screen where I don't have anything up. There's an issue with the tool where you actually cannot properly start the tool until after the first time the strategy cards have been chosen and the tool to assign turn order has been hit. We run into that all the time. Maybe it gets fixed someday, who knows? But at the time of this recording, we still have to do that. So we do the draft screen, and then we cut to our action phase, and then we've got our status phase. We've even got a special screen with just solo objective stuff. We've got everyone's favorite spreadsheet update. That's for me, though. You can get your own. We've got a special Be Right Back screen. We've got an outro screen for the same reason we do the pre-roll thing. And then I've got a bunch of other weird stuff that we don't really use anymore. But that's the kind of stuff you can get up to with your very own streaming little setup here. Enjoy. I love you. Thanks for being a part of the Space Cats Peace Turtles qualifiers streaming congregate. Goodbye.